He let us borrow Red Eye. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. So here we go, Gibson's latest $22,000 collector's edition thing. You know, at first I was kind of dogging the case because it's Gibson USA's chainsaw style one, but yeah, that blue is cool. So for those keeping track at home, so far we've had the limited edition pink one for the Billy Joe Armstrong Les Paul Jr., and now we've got this blue one for the Jason Isbell Red Eye. But we'll look at all the case candy here in a minute. Let's get to the guitar. That is a mighty fine 59 reissue. So the whole story of Red Eye is this is Ed King's old guitar, formerly of Lynyrd Skynyrd. And at one point in time, this guitar was stolen from him. Some guys say he was robbed at gunpoint and the guitar disappeared for many years, and then he eventually got it back after he saw it in the Beauty of the Burst book. And through the help of the law, he was able to get it back, and that's the reason why the Dirk Ziff collection is now completely private and he doesn't share photos anymore. But the reason this guitar is called Red Eye is because of this. It has this unique unfaded portion on the guitar right here. And that's just the way 50s Les Pauls were until 1960. They changed up their formula. They all started cherry sunburst like this, but if you put them in a store window, they would start to fade out, and that's why you have so many different color variations yet today that Gibson continuously tries to recreate because there's just so many hues you can get. But this is kind of one of those cool examples where you can see what it started life as and what it faded into. But it's believed that a shop sticker similar to this one was put over top of it, and it shielded it from the sun, and that's what gave it its signature look and hence its new name. But Jason Isbell, he's a famous musician in his own right. He actually bought this from Carter Vintage Guitars not that long ago. You can actually see on YouTube where he falls in love with it because they just called him up and said, hey, do you want to help us demo this really famous burst? And he's like, yes. And then the story goes, after that moment, he calls up his accountant who says, no, you cannot afford a $400,000 guitar. So he calls up his marketing manager and says, hey, book me some cool posh private gigs. Let's make this happen. So the Bitcoin boys made it possible, and now Gibson has recreated 59 of these guitars for the second time because there was also a collector's choice edition of Red Eye, but this one's new. It's collector's edition this time. But hey, at least we can say this run has the true Brazilian rosewood fretboard, and it's a little bit more limited and part of the whole Murphy Labs thing, and it's on to its new owner this time. And apparently Jason handpicked all 59 of the tops, and he meticulously selected sets of pickups that sounded close to the original. At least that's how they're marketing it. But first impressions, this thing is nice and light. It's got a great top to it. It's not overstated, not understated. It definitely has the finish checking all over it, but it looks pretty tasteful. Not super beat up and disgusting, but we can take a second to appreciate the wear that's put on the back. Apparently these scratches back here are done by Isbell on the original, so they had to recreate it here. We've got lots of nicks and dings. It would be interesting to compare this to the actual original, because sometimes with aging jobs, you have to take some liberties, but there's like 5 or 6 main points that you have to get. I mean, for example, on this one, if you don't have the Red Eye, you've done it wrong. But I'd be willing to bet another one is like these 2 marks on the edge of the headstock, but you've got some wear over here. They've even replicated the wear along the edge of the neck. But if you want to know what number you have out of 59, you can check it out back here because you have the original serial number as well as your number. Number 10. Cool. And look at that gorgeous fretboard. That is so ridiculously dark. That's a nice Brazilian board. But now let's talk about the case. The whole reason why the interior is gray and the exterior is blue is this is to mimic the case that Jason is keeping the guitar in currently. It's a Colton case. Those are meant for touring on the road. You can throw them off a building. You can set them on fire. They're relatively weatherproof, but they're also like $2,000. Now for $22,000, I feel we also should have gotten a Colton case, but you know, at least they paid a little bit of a tribute to it with this. But if you buy one of these attached to the outside of your case, because it's just way too big, you get this giant strap. I need to measure this. That's a 3.5-inch strap. This thing's gonna feel like nothing with that. But it looks like a crocodile exterior. It appears to be real leather, but they have this little red eye here. They're just going for that whole red eye thing everywhere. This is pretty sweet looking, and it looks like the brand is Savas, or however you pronounce that, but this is really nice leather. Like, it's not stiff, but you can tell it's the real stuff just by the smell. I guess we could have figured out the brand by it being on the bag as well. But inside our case compartment, we've got some more fun. We've got our teeny weeny little tiny COA here that has Jason playing the original here and your little write-up in case the website ever goes down. And oh cool, it does have the story behind it. But apparently they're using 3D scans and all that to help recreate the guitar as well. And it's always good that they tell you solid Brazilian rosewood. And now we can flip it over to the back. You can see you've got your red Gibson Custom back here and your red eye. And it's a glossy book. I thought that was going to be like leather or something. That's interesting. But if you're wondering why it's so eensy-weensy, teeny-weeny, because a normal size COA would not fit in the smaller compartment of the case. But now we can look at the famous tag here. It says Gibson Les Paul model. I sat in a window and my cherry burst faded. But thanks to this tag, my red eye was shaded. I think that's them taking liberties. The original one did not actually say that. But the inside also has some things where it just tells you about the toggle switch. I'm not sure if the originals had a tag similar to this or what it's about, but I would imagine so. Because back here it's saying only use Gibson strings. This release is the opposite. They give you the medallion in the case and the regular one installed. Done up by logos. You get your regular chainsaw reissue stuff like your name tags, pass certificate, keys, ever so important silica packets. And you know what? It's been a while since we've looked through all the custom shop case candy, so this seems a good one to do that on. Our first one's just talking about the capacitors. This is not a usual piece of case candy. Seems to be done up by the same guys who did a strap, but it tells the story as well. Almost kind of looks like a large business card. Back is plain. Vintage Gibson reissue strings. Gibson custom tag for social media. The Gibson app, another one about Gibson strings that comes in all custom shops. Reissues anyway. Here's our warranty information. Very good for a $22,000 guitar. A Les Paul model tag. You know what? I wonder. Yeah, okay, that makes sense now. This is what it usually looks like. That's why you look through it. So they just changed the wording down here to have it rhyme for fun case candy, but you do get what the original would have had. Okay, makes complete sense now why it would be on the toggle switch, because it talks about the toggle switch. Although I will argue the color is slightly different on the special one. Here's a hole punched one that talks about your setup. A copy of the famous Mr. Dealer tag that they started to put in there because of situations like this guy. Here's a recreation of that talking about the Murphy lab process, saying the finish is unstable and will continue to fade over the years. And this one's talking about pickup height adjustments, and then your next one talks about your Tune-O-Matic bridge. And they also give you these for around your strap, because I guess Jason uses that as like a strap lock system. And lastly, for historical preservation, these were not available at dealers. It was a Gibson.com or Garage exclusive. They did not discount these. It was $22,000 plus tax. So I'd say that's a pretty decent haul of all this stuff. But there's one more thing I want to talk about that I think is unintentional but kind of funny, because their whole blue and red eye type thing. TSA latch up here. That's just the regular logo, but is it really fitting or what? That was a fun first look, but now let's get more intimate with it. Throw it on the workbench, take an individual look at its parts and specs. Inside Red Eye, I was curious what other areas might be unfaded on this, because it looked like the original had some underneath the guard yet, and they did replicate it, so I'm sure they looked at it and tried to make it look as close to it as it was in 2024. However, again, I have not actually seen the actual guitar, but this area was definitely shaded, but apparently it got some sunlight here. But if you look around the knobs, you can just barely see this when they're on. But I decided to pop them off real quick just so you could see. No, those are not the red rubber things around there. That's just the unfaded finish area, similar to our famous Red Eye over here. But now that we have a different lighting situation, let's just run over the top so you can appreciate some of the wear. Like right here, you've got an area that kind of picks through to the bare wood. You've got a lot of finish chipping along the edge that they had to recreate. There's even some of that along the neck that I would classify as slightly uncomfortable feeling towards the cowboy cord areas, but here's a big nasty ding. That's definitely one of those ones that they probably have to recreate on every single one. Yeah, this lighting is showing off all the Murphy Labs finish checking pretty nicely. That's a nice active top. And we'll quickly run up the other side. Now for the meat and potatoes. Let's see what is underneath our neck pickup. Surprise, surprise, long neck tenon, but there was a surprise. BG. I wonder what that stands for. Burst guitar. I wonder if that has something to do with the reissue or if that's in the original. But here's a good cross section showing you the maple top, the mahogany body, as well as the maple block that caps off your truss rod within the neck. But here's a look at the backside of the custom bucker. No particular markings on it. The same is true for our bridge pickup. I guess there is this weird kind of waxy green spot right there. Not sure if that's exclusive to these particular pickups. Here's a look at that bridge pickup cavity. And they definitely took some time to age our pickup covers, and they really rounded over your pickup rings. They've got some age to them as well. We can take a second to appreciate the bridge pickup too. But our readings within the circuit, pretty hot. 8.2 k ohms in the bridge, 7.65 in the neck, and the middle just for fun, 3.97. It's just your typical volume tone for your neck, volume tone for your bridge. No wiring modifications were ever done to this one. Here's a close-up look at the knob since I have it off. Nothing too crazy. I don't see any particular aging to these. The pickguard does have just a little bit, like there's a darkness spot right there. That's cool. And they've reliced the edge of your bracket here, as well as the backside. And your screws. Here's our real ABR1 bridge, relic to look similar to the one on the guitar. You can see you've got that wear spot, but be careful. This one does not have the wire retainer, but we'll carefully flip it over to see the ABR1 branding. If you don't understand what I just said, these just fall out. There is a version of the ABR1 that has a wire over top of them, so they don't. And here's a look at the red eye tailpiece. Lightweight aluminum, just like other custom shop reissues. But it is a nice two-piece flame maple top with our solid mahogany body. Now we can move on to our mahogany neck with Brazilian rosewood fretboard. Now the original has actually been refretted at this point. So I think that's something that is different as compared to the first Collector's Choice edition, because it only had a partial refret at that time and Jason just decided to finish the job. I believe he said by Joe Glazier. So these frets do look a little bit taller than what you'd see on other reissues. And I'm not sure if he opted to have fret nib retention when he did it or not, but they decided to put fret nibs on this particular reissue of it. But again, look at that Brazilian rosewood fretboard. So nice and dark. I wouldn't put it past you if you accidentally called it ebony, but you can see some rosiness up here. Now let's grab our neck specs. Pretty slim, 1.675 at the nut, about 2.05 by the 12, 0.89 first fret neck depth, and just a little bit under 1 by the 12. Typical 24 3/4 inch scale and 12 inch fretboard radius. Here's a look at that neck profile at the first fret and the 12th fret. Nice rounded C shape. But this is the area I was talking about earlier, how they had to rough it up along the edge. If you wrap your thumb around it, it does feel kind of scratchy. That runs up pretty much the entire length of the neck, but it's not quite as extreme up here. But you get your tortoiseshell colored side marker inlays before we get to the face of the headstock. So again, more extreme lighting. You can see all the finish checking and work that they put into making this look like an older guitar than it is. Now let's check out our truss rod, which was set perfectly, and our cover has some aging to it as well. The Les Paul model silkscreen is still there and very proud, and our mother of pearl Gibson logo. Vintage style clusins. Now it's time to flip over to the backside. We'll do the same thing we did on the front. Extreme lighting to show off all the aging that they did. Especially heavy buckle scratching back here. I didn't even realize that was so deep. But of course, all your finish checking and good stuff too. Just to document how these things looked brand new. Because that's the great thing about aged guitars, is if you buy it as a collectible and oh no, you scratched it or dinged it. On a non-aged guitar, that can be a big deal. But on these aged ones, typically you can't tell what was factory versus what someone else did. Unless it's like really obvious, like you're missing a whole chunk of finish down here or there's a giant gouge. So as long as you don't do anything too crazy, you'll be okay. But this mahogany body actually has some movement to it, so that should look good on the outside B-roll shots. I didn't want to forget to look around the edges on this. Not any heavy finish wear necessarily, just mainly that chip there, a couple of strap wear through areas, your soloing area where you rub up against here. I feel like that would be smoother on the original. That's got a pretty hard ridge to it yet, from transitioning to bare wood to the finish. But here you can see our thin binding in the cutaway showing our flamed maple. Oh, there's a ding over here. That's probably another one of those, has to be on every single one, as well as whatever wear marks we got down here. But now our cavities. On a $22,000 guitar, I expected a little bit better as far as finally sanding them. I know it's nitpicky and it doesn't affect anything about the guitar, but this kind of shocks me coming out of the custom shop because it's everywhere in this cavity. However, the wiring looks pretty decent. You've got your Reissue Bumblebee capacitors. They're using the Gibson branded pot in this release. And surprisingly, you do have the R9 stamp in the ledge. You'd almost think on a replica reissue guitar like this, they would omit that. But here's our toggle switch route. You can see similar beardies along the edge, but it is what it is. It appears even the back plates got aged similarly, like it's got a deep scratch right there. Similar scratches on the back of this one too, because now we get to move up the backside of the neck. I didn't even realize this when I was handling it. There are 2 deep gouges being recreated on this guitar. Other than that, it's mainly just the finish wear along here. But that's the whole point of collector's editions. It's supposed to be very close and similar to the original. These are not for everybody. But I would assume that is the original serial number up there, 90891, and then your number 10. With our single line, single ring Kluson style tuners. They turn phenomenally. All said and done, Red Eye weighs 8 pounds, 7.8 ounces. So not bad, 8.5 for a solid body Les Paul reissue. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how it sounds. First impressions, yeah, this strap is quite comfy. Once you get it on the buttons, brand new leather straps are always the worst about that. That neck pickup's nice. Very warm and round. I'm actually most surprised by the bridge pickup. That's got a great classic rock tone to it. The middle position's also good for the leads. That's rare when I like a bridge pickup clean better than the neck. I mean, this almost sounds muddy. But can still be musical in a way. But that bridge pickup. Perfection. Let's go ahead and kick on the dirt. there we go, the Collector's Edition Red Eye, 22K. Is it worth it? I'll let you decide in the comments. For me personally, I was a little bit let down by the neck pickup, but again, if they're trying to recreate a certain pickup and if it sounds like that, okay, that's what they were going for. It's not awful by any means. It definitely has a very nice vintage tone to it, but it was way muddier than I was expecting. But bridge pickup, just phenomenal on this particular example. So if you have the original Collector's Choice Edition, maybe this video will help you decide, is it worth upgrading? Just remember, they're only making 59 of these. Thank you for sharing your new guitar with us, because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to make this review of the Brazilian Rosewood fretboarded version. As far as really expensive Gibson guitars go, I think this is a better value than the 20K Brazilians that they just recently released, because it's a little bit more limited, and it's got an artist or two behind it, as well as a little bit of an interesting tale, and some pretty cool case candy. But as the title of this guitar suggests, it's mainly for collectors. There's not many gigging musicians who are going to purchase these to be their #1 instrument, but hey, you never know. Jason Isbell never even wanted a 59 until this particular guitar spoke to him, and now Gibson collectors might also help him pay off some of the money that he paid for it. Not only the Bitcoin boys. But alright, Troglodytes, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.